Good morning. Welcome back to another edition of Doing It with Dish. This morning I'm back on the property, not hauling gravel, not running the dozer. Instead, I'd like to take a few minutes and talk about the trees on the property and the disease, the insects and funguses that are wreaking havoc on them. This property has sat idle for 80, 90 years, maybe longer, and nothing's been done to the forest. So what there is a lot of older growth trees and very susceptible to different problems. The first one I want to touch base with is the emerald ash borer. This property, being a little bit low and a little bit wet, has a lot of black ash and also some white ash. And unfortunately, the emerald ash borer is cleaned up on it. The emerald ash borer is a small little insect, lays its egg on the bark of the tree, and then the larvae bore underneath, and they live underneath the bark for a while. While they're in there, they kind of make a zigzag pattern back and forth, eating and surviving. This keeps the nutrients from the roots from getting to the leaves. So what happens is the tree gets weak, and if it's severe enough, it'll die. And unfortunately, most of the ones around here have died. So the only cure right now is for me to go in and harvest what I can for firewood, and that's going to be my plan with the black and white ash. The next one I'll touch base just a little bit on. There's not a lot of beech on this property. There's some in the higher areas, and unfortunately they got a white fungus on them. This problem started mostly in the eastern part of Upper Michigan and has been slowly moving to the west. And unfortunately, the beech trees on this property, they all have that fungus, and they're all showing signs of stress. Some have already died, and unfortunately the rest of them are probably going to die also. And again, not much I can do at this point other than harvest them for firewood. Hopefully what grows after that won't be susceptible to that same fungus. So now I'll talk a little bit about the softwood trees on the property. Spruce and the balsam. And unfortunately, as you've seen me dozing and pushing these over, you might ask why you're pushing all these trees over, and unfortunately 90% of the spruce and balsam on this property has died. Whether it's from the spruce budworm, there's root rot, heart rot, there's so many different things that can affect these trees. And when these trees fall down, there was just so many of them. There's areas in this property that are just a mess. And makes harvesting other trees a little more of a problem. Prior to me being involved with this property, it had a very big stand of Tamarack. And unfortunately, years back, the Larch Sawfly got in there. And all that remains of most of the Tamarack and anything of any size is just the stubs sticking up that have been dead for about 25 years now. And I'm just going to leave those stand There's not much you can do with them now, so I'm just going to leave them alone and let the birds live in them. The last tree I'm going to talk a little bit about is the elm tree. And again, on this property, there aren't a lot of them. Unfortunately, if people remember back in the 70s, the whole upper Midwest was hit bad with the Dutch Elm Disease. Following that time, a few sprouted up, and on this property there were just a handful of young elms. But unfortunately, it seems they got the Dutch Elm Disease again. Because they too have died. And with these trees, about the same thing I can do is cut them down for firewood. It's about all they're good for at this point. Hope to get some regeneration of them. The elm tree is a very nice tree, and hopefully we see them come back. It's unfortunate that so much of this property has had troubles with different insects and diseases and funguses. And once I get this cleaned up, I've had several professionals come in, take a look. So what we're doing is we're coming up with a plan, we'll call it a reforestation plan. What I'm going to plant, where I'm going to plant, how much, what species. We'll talk about that more at a later date when I actually start doing that. But for now, I need to get rid of these dead trees, get them out of the way, harvest what I can, save what I can. And until next time, thanks for watching.